Today we'll be talking about Cleveland's Launcher XL irons. There's a lot to talk about here, and I want to draw some attention to the different design elements they put into consideration. The big thing here is the XL, as you can see here written, the XL head design. This is the most significant amount of MOI they've ever put together in a game improvement iron. It's also done using their mainframe technology. Very big story for them, and there's a lot of information out there you can look at in other clubs that are utilizing that design. What's unique about these is they have what's called an action mass CB. So if you take it into the head, they've actually created CB based on 8 grams of weight built into the top of the grip, and that's going to support overall control without the extra effort that people would need there. A couple things that I look out straight away when I see these clubs, obviously V-sole is the most compelling part when you look down into the bag, supporting different styles of turf interaction. I also really like that Cleveland puts their loft information on the head itself, not being secretive, allowing people to know what exactly they have in hand. Finally, there's a unique style here in play, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on, but there are groove differences between different irons in the set. From 4 to 7 iron, they actually have a wider groove set, and from, I believe, 8 to their wedges, they have a tighter groove design. This is all about performance in those locations and supports the style of play you're looking to have. I think right now what we'll do is head into the hitting bay, hit some shots with these and see what kind of performance. And the biggest thing for me as we move into a new design from Cleveland is, can they create the same sort of quality sound performance that we got out of UHX, and or can they improve on it? So let's go in there, take a look, and then talk about the numbers. Welcome to the hitting bay. We are here with Cleveland Launcher XL, going to hit 4 or 5 shots with the product and sort of talk through what I'm seeing as I'm hitting it. So let me take one quick strike here. All right, out of gate, I think I got a little excited because I shut that down pretty hard. There's a lot to take in on the data that I just saw. We're gonna step into that later. First of all, this is a 6 iron. I think it's great that Cleveland stamps their lofts onto the top of the product. In this case, it's 26 degrees of loft. The design is really interesting. I like the very shallow heel side presentation, and it really lends itself to that longer heel to toe style of head. This is going to support what their premise is, which is a high MOI design. And as I look back at that data a little bit, 137 mile an hour ball speed, I know I turned that one over pretty hard. And we'll see probably a couple fades in here as well. So let's hit another one. There you go, there's our fade. Perfect. Well, we don't really have to wait until the recap to talk about workability here. I just hit one both ways, whether intentional or not is up to you, those watching along. 134 mile an hour ball speed, so we lost a couple, being that the face was a little bit more open that time. The carry's fantastic for me at 196. That's about maybe a little bit longer than my expectations for a 6 iron. Some pretty nice spin numbers as well. Shaft wise, here we have the Elevate 95 in stiff. Elevate's proven itself to be a very nice option for those out there looking. Let's hit one or I suppose 2 or 3 more. And there we go. Maybe our first hole out here in the tech studio. One thing we have to talk about, and this was mentioned, Josh behind the camera there made a comment as he was sitting at the THP headquarters desk, is that the quality of the sound on this is surprising. And you know, I've been a big time proponent for a long time now that there should be no concessions to sound. I think Cleveland did a great job with UHX, that sort of sound profile, stepping it up to the next level in this style and shape of iron. And I think it's carrying over here into Launcher XL. There's a lot of good things to be said about what I'm hearing. It's nice that we're getting all kinds of strikes here. That was a tiny bit fat or heavy, however you want to call it. Still hitting my number very nicely. There is a V-sole design on these heads, and that's going to support you out of those different style of conditions. One of the things I love about V-sole is it plays a role more or less when you need it, not when you don't. In that case, I think V-sole will be very friendly for me when I get out onto the short grass. And again, based on the quality of strike, 131 mile an hour ball speed, I deserve that. And you know, you can't expect crazy numbers every time, especially if you don't hit it great. So let's hit one more and see what we have. That's perfect. Another one a little bit on the toe side. It's going to turn over a little bit. I'm really curious to see the ball speed numbers on this one, as it was a little bit out towards the toe. We're going to get a chance to talk about these MOI experiences. 130 mile an hour ball speed, but that carry is still very strong at 197. I think that's plenty here in the hitting bay. Let's go to the overhead table view and see what we have. And here we are on table view. There's a lot to consider when we're looking at this chart. I know there's 6 swings, and I've actually eliminated the last one as I feel like is a pretty poor representation of what the club performance can provide, mostly because the one before that did more or less the same thing. And I didn't want to trend the results overall. From 5 relatively good strikes, despite the fact that I was going back and forth between a draw and a fade, somewhat intentionally. I'll tell you intentionally since you can't argue with me. I really like the deviations that I'm seeing, as you can see down here where it says standard deviation. The ball speed numbers are fairly close. One mediocre strike, that was one I hit a tiny bit heavy, is driving those numbers a little bit further than it should be. However, I think 1.8 is wonderful for a 6-iron. I wouldn't say it was my best striking session ever. However, I kind of got away with it a little bit there. And that goes to show you the same thing with the launch angle. It launched relatively similar. The side angle, not really relevant here. Backspin's the big story. I am a higher spin guy in general, but I've made some changes to my swing and the ball I use that supports more of a lower swing number or spin number. I think for this style of iron, this is exactly what I'm looking for, especially when I haven't optimized anything like shaft or anything like that. To have a deviation of 200 RPMs, I think is fantastic over 5 strikes. Descent angle is very tight. Peak yards, not very different. Carry, not very different. Well, carry is a tiny bit different, but I think that has everything to do with the one that I absolutely hammered with a little bit of a left turn in it. It's obviously going to be a bit different. The big story here is peak height. I am very much in that 40-degree range. When I see that number, that means it's performing as I would expect, not performing a certain way or the other. So I hope this is a good consideration as to what the results of Cleveland Launcher irons can do for your game. We'd love to hear your feedback as you go out and hit them for yourselves, whether it's here in the comment section or on the THP forum.